Hey, Dooberteers, welcome back to the show. My guest today, I mean, her backstory really made me laugh because she really grew up fearing big dogs because, what was it, a border collie used to chase her to the bus stop in
It
elementary?
was it was a Lassie collie.
A Lassie collie, sorry, a Lassie collie would chase her to the bus stop every day to the point she had to climb a tree to get away from it. And now she entered animal welfare at the ripe old age of 17 because she was a procrastinator. And now some few decades later, she's still in animal welfare doing amazing things. So, Finn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. It's really nice to be here. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Finnegan Dowling. I am the Senior Shelter Engagement and Programs Manager for Mutual Rescue. And we are an organization that we work on a couple different fronts. One of them is we make short films that demonstrate the impact of rescued animals on the people who rescue them. And then we also have the shelter impact side, which is what I do. We create resources that help shelters better engage with their communities and bring in more members of their community with the hope of eventually getting everybody involved with sheltering. So
I love that. I mean, I think you know even better than I do, Finn, how much sheltering has changed in the last few decades and how we're really focused on it being a community resource, a community place, and community programs. I mean, talk to me about what's your perspective? How have things morphed in the last decade?
in the last decade, the last decade has been a weird one. Like, because there was just a random pandemic, like a random 100-year pandemic
Right.
thrown in there. So that sort of makes it a bit of an outlier. Well, first of all, like since I sort of started in sheltering. This was 92, I think, right? Like sort of at the cusp when we were losing, at least in the mainstream, like the dog catcher idea and really pivoting away from the dog pound and everything. And I came in sort of right during that change where the idea became more, how do we save these animals? How do we become a resource for the community? What have I seen in the past decade? I've seen a lot more data-based decisions, which means that we are trusting our community in some ways more than we ever have, in some ways less than we ever have. That seems to be pretty cyclical. But really, I think the biggest advance has been the use of data and technology. Sheltering for a long time prior to data collection was basically like phrenology.
Hmm.
It was just sort of like one of those random Victorian sciences that's sort of based on like best guess,
Yeah.
because we were just sort of poking around in the dark. And every year we become more and more data focused, and that really I think has been the biggest change and the best change. So
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously an area that I'm very interested in and looking at the data and bringing technology because I think we become so accustomed in our real world to technology making things easier. And it seems like in animal sheltering, it seems like we're a good 5, 10 years behind sometimes because there's nobody investing to bring these same tools to this industry.
it's also true that like the problem is sheltering isn't a monolith,
Yeah.
right? So like I work with a lot of shelters all across the country, and like we see some shelters that have every piece of technology. Like they're using Doobert, they have the latest shelter software, they have everything up to, if you go into adopt, they give you the little plates like they do in restaurants that vibrate, like that sort of thing. And then you see shelters, particularly in the South and in the rural areas, where maybe they have a computer, maybe they're still working out of a ledger. There's a skills gap and like a huge resource gap. Just like, sheltering sort of mirrors our current population. And we definitely have a lot of shelters that just don't even have the resources for even the most basic technology. And that is a massive issue that we have to deal with. So,
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about what Mutual Rescue is doing, some of the programs that you guys are doing, what your focus areas are.
So my personal focus areas are basically any sort of out of the box resource that will help shelters bring in more of their community and also engage with more of their community and also make sure that everybody who enters an animal shelter feels welcome.
Mm.
And feels that they are wanted and that they are needed there. So the big programs that I have been focusing on in the past was Doggie Day Out, day foster programs. In 2017, I wrote the Doggie Day Out Toolkit, which is basically sort of like a field trip foster program in a box. It's got participant manuals, shelter manuals, template forms, and it's all in Word. So any shelter can just take that, change the text as they need to, add their own logos, go ahead and use it. Our most recent program, and the one that has been a huge passion project for me as well as for our translator, is our language accessibility project, which is most shelters, despite the fact that, what is it? I think it's 13% of the United States speaks Spanish in the home.
Yeah.
Most shelters do not have Spanish language resources. And because there is that resource gap that we're talking about, our idea was, how can we make sure that every shelter has access to resources for free? So working with the translator, we put together 45 handouts, all written at an 8th grade level. So they're literacy accessible, super non-judgmental tone. Everything from spay and neuter to what to do if your cat isn't using the litter box, introducing a new pet, heartworms, microchips, all of that, like 45 handouts. And then they're all translated into Spanish by a native speaker, not AI. And any shelter can download them, put their own logo on them, and use them with their own community so that they do have information and resources for that population. And in the future, we hope to expand into other languages. I think Vietnamese and Chinese would probably be next because that's the most requested languages we get.
I really love this because, you guys could start a new shelter or new rescue, but you're really focusing on programs that are helping out all of these organizations. Because as you know, if every organization had to develop their own Spanish language materials, it'd be a major burden. But you guys are doing that work and serving it up to them on a platter, right? Insert your logo and away you go.
Oh, yeah. And we even have the keychains. I usually have one on my desk that with the QR code that link to it, to all of the Spanish language resources, and animal control officers are using them in the field in a way we didn't even expect, where if they go out on a call with a Spanish speaker, they're taking the keychain and saying, okay, this is a skinny dog issue, and I'm going to download this handout about dog nutrition in Spanish on your phone, and they'll just take it, scan the keychain, get to the handout, download it on the person's phone, and give it to them. So it's it's making it easier for everybody to be able to use these resources. But that is our goal, is to elevate all of animal welfare. A lot of times in animal welfare, we get into a lot of infighting because we're all fighting over a very small piece of the pie, philanthropy wise. Carol Novello, who founded Mutual Rescue, I think she said it was 4% of all philanthropy goes to environment and animal welfare combined. So
right.
And you've got every animal shelter group scrambling for that. And our goal is, our thought is, what if instead of fighting over that pie, we create something that everybody can use so that, I don't know. Not real articulate with that point, but you get where I'm going.
Totally get where you're going. I think the same way about what we're trying to do at Doobert, right? Like, how do we help more? We're not trying to judge. We're not trying to tell you how to run your organization. We're simply trying to give you the tools, the resources to run your program your way. Because my perspective is, while shelters and rescues all have a similar common purpose, their communities are so different, and the way that they engage with the community and talk to their community varies in areas across the country. I mean, I'm in Tampa, Florida, and you're in Texas, right? And communities are just vastly different, even though we all care about animals.
Oh, yeah. And especially, too, if you, the whole north-south thing with sheltering, Like that's, I mean, we're almost like two different countries when it comes to some parts of the United States that are doing super well with adoptions. Like if you look at, for instance, like Massachusetts, right, where they're importing a lot of, or New England, where they're importing a lot of the animals, they're taking in a lot of transfers.
Sure.
I mean, that's almost, if you walk through those shelters and then you come down here and walk through a shelter where I live, you are not going to think it's the same country. You're going to think that this is two completely different countries, because the communities are so different, the needs are so different, and the resources are so different. The resource allocation is so different. So,
Yeah. What is the community for animals where you live? What is it like?
Deep South Texas. So I live in Corpus Christi. We have two shelters here, and they're both doing incredible work. They're doing every single progressive program you can think of, Doggie Day Out, Dogs Playing for Life and everything. But the shelters are always full. And, if you drive, like most of the buildings are pretty outdated in the shelters in this area because there's not a lot of resources. This is not a wealthy area at all. Access to spay or neuter, particularly low cost spay or neuter, very, very limited. As is transportation. We have a lot of very, very rural parts of Nueces County where you can literally drive an hour through this county and without seeing a town. And there's no transportation, even if there was free spay and neuter. Like if people don't drive, you're just not going to make it the 45 minutes with your dog. So there's that. We have a lot of, it's just access issues as well as being just basically a poorer area of the country.
Yeah. No, it is hard. And like you said, depending on where you go and what you see and, so tell us, take a spin back to your entry in 4A into.
Oh boy.
I think this is just a fascinating story about how, whether you call it karma or just, as you said, just procrastination kind of led you down this path.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was looking at your questions and it was like your journey to leadership, and I'm like, this was not a linear journey at all. So when I was 17, I went to college. I went to the Evergreen State College and hippie college. Anybody who went to Evergreen will not argue with me.
Okay.
I agree. I'm not a hippie. Everybody knows that. Punk rock, as much as you can be at 51 years old, yes. But, and so my hippie college had this requirement that you had to do volunteer work. And you had to, it was a lot too, Chris. It was not any small amount, 2 hours a week. It was something like 5 or 10 hours a week. And it was the first 2 semesters, and I just procrastinated. I didn't want to do it. I was 17. I was living my best life, on the completely different coast from where I'd grown up, and didn't have a car. So it comes to 2 weeks before the end of whenever all of this is done, and I have something absurd 85 hours that I have to do in 2 weeks to do it. And I don't even have, or I won't pass my first year. There's not going to be a second year of college for me if I don't do this. So I'm frantically calling around, and I've got 2 things going against me. I'm 17 years old. And I need to be able to basically live wherever I'm going to be volunteering for 2 weeks. And the only place that would take me was Thurston County Animal Services. The animal shelter said, yeah, come on, I will take you. And you can work as much as you want. And so it was sort of this 2 to 3 week charmed interlude in which I fell completely in love with the shelter. I fell in love with the work. And even after I got my credits and everything, I stayed volunteering there. I wound up working there through most of college. I interned there doing their marketing. I was the voice of Freddie the Talking Flea back when public service announcements were a thing. Yo.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. I did the public service announcement for flea control as Freddie the Talking Flea. And I was an ACO there for a while. And yeah, and that was sort of my path into animal welfare. And I never left. So And
Yeah,
shout out to Sarah Hawk, who is now the director of Thurston County and absolute incredible director. So
it seems like you've had every possible job along the way, right? Which is just furthered your knowledge about what some of the challenges are and what some of the solutions are.
I'm pretty proud of the fact that I think I have worked every single frontline position in a shelter. I have been a youth tech, I have been intake, I have been animal care, I have been foster, I have been adoption counselor, I've run an adoption department, I've run an intake department. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How has all that experience and all those pivots, how has that morphed and shaped your leadership style?
When I look at any challenge in sheltering, my first look is always at the front line. And what I mean by that is if the line doesn't move, nothing moves. So for me, my leadership style is basically it's a lot of listening and it's a lot of common ground and it's a lot of listening to the front line, which is something that I don't think we do enough in shelters. Is we tend to be really upstairs, downstairs, where admin and operations tend to be very separate.
Okay.
And so I think when it comes to my leadership style, I tend to go right to the direct service workers. Those are the people that I want to talk to when I'm looking to at a systematic issue, like for instance, language access, something like that. I don't really want to talk to the admin people. So my big leadership philosophy is support the line. It's support the line at all costs, support that front line at all costs, and make sure that there are paths forward for them.
It's something that, like you said, it's very easy as an organization grows for there to become disparity, right? Between the front office, the back office, as you said, the front line, the operations. I mean, how do you keep that? How do you break that down? How do you keep that lines of communication and transparency so that we don't have that hierarchy?
Carol Novello, who was the founder of Mutual Rescue, she was the leader that I worked under who did it the best. And what she did was she mined the front line for talent for the admin. When I started working with her, she was the president of Humane Society Silicon Valley, and I've been primarily nomadic the majority of my life. Like I said, this is not a linear story. And I was just in California until I could earn enough money to get back to Latin America. So I just took a job as an adoption counselor because I was going to go back down to Latin America. And I was working at the front desk and bored out of my mind as an adoption counselor because it was one of those jobs. I'd run to adoption departments. I was just scraping together money to go back to so I started writing a blog for the shelter, and she pulled me off the front line and put me in marketing. And I saw her do that with so many people, where I saw her pulling people off the front line and putting them in development. I saw her mining the front line for talent, which is not something I see a lot in shelters, for admin talent, that she was looking at the line and she was seeing the people there and seeing those skills and saying, hey, this person can do this. This person should, and providing that path forward. And that I think helps a lot because it means that there's always someone at the table that knows the reality of the front line.
Finn, I mean, you've seen so much and done so much. If you could go back in time, back to your 17-year-old self and give her advice, what would you give her?
Don't ever get bangs. It doesn't work for you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not a bangs person. What advice would I give myself? Probably to take better care of myself and to take better care of the people around me. But if I could tell myself, my 17-year-old self, something, it would be tone down the hubris, kid. I think in my set, like for a lot of my life, had way more hubris than I had brains. So,
And it still turned out okay.
I did. But listen more, talk less would probably be what I would tell myself because,
Yeah, I think that's probably good advice for all of us, right? When we're younger, full of all sorts of stuff that we could conquer the world. And you look back on it and say, yes, you can, but don't get bangs and
Yeah, don't
you
get
know,
bangs.
treat people
And
kindly.
well, and like recognize the absurdity of your like 21-year-old self
Yeah.
walking into a room with a 60-year-old man who wants to adopt a dog, who has had dogs his entire life, with the idea that I'm going to educate him.
Right.
Like just like the insane, that I have some whatever, like with that attitude that I'm there, as opposed to we are just two people having a conversation who both love dogs, having a conversation to see if this is the right fit for you. But like that sort of, like I have to educate people, hubris, or I somehow know more.
Hmm.
In the immortal words of the great ska punk band Operation Ivy, is all I know is I don't know nothing, and that's fine.
I like that. That's a good quote. I'll have to use that one.
Yes.
So, Finn, as we start to draw to a close, I always like to end with our lightning round. So, fun series of questions so we can learn a little bit more about you as a person. You ready?
Okay.
All right, you got to pick one: kitten purrs or puppy breath.
Oh, puppy breath. Oh no, kitten purrs, kitten purrs. I'm gonna go. Wait, I'm going back. Kitten purrs.
Oh, did it at about face. Okay.
I'm not really a baby animal person. I'll be honest. I love adult animals, and it just occurred to me that kittens use a litter box a lot quicker than puppies or housebroken. So, kitten purrs, kitten purrs, kitten purrs.
The win. Are you
Kitten
more of
purrs.
an early bird or a late night owl?
All of the above. I'm an
Okay.
insomniac.
You were up at all hours. Got
I am up at the all hours. Yes. So
Okay. What do you like to do to decompress after a hard day?
I'm a nerd. I'm a
Okay.
big nerd. I'm really into insects and birds. I'm
Oh.
really into insects and birds, and I study Spanish, obviously, and I travel a lot. I love to travel. I spend a lot of time in Mexico. Yeah.
Wow, those all sound like fun things.
Mhm.
So if your pets were writing a Yelp review about you as a pet parent, how many stars do you think you'd get?
3. I'd knock it out of the park
Okay.
as a 5 for meal prep and goofy song singing.
Of course.
But as my anxiety triggers my dog's anxiety,
Okay.
he would probably deduct some scores because like she's a nervous wreck when we have to go to the vet, and it's a little rough on me.
That's fair, right? Like,
That's yeah.
honest.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
no foul. Is there one ingredient you think just does not belong on a pizza?
I'm sorry, my Italian friends. Oh no, wait. Actually, I'm gonna go bigger. I'm actually gonna offend all of Texas. Don't put barbecue sauce on pizza. Like that's in Buffalo. That's just stupid. So
Okay, that's fair. Do you have a spirit animal? What is your spirit animal?
I have an animal soulmate.
Okay.
Because a friend of mine once told me, a native friend told me that we should not be using spirit animal. So
Okay.
my
What is
native,
your
my
spirit soulmate?
my animal soulmate. Oh gosh, we have a mockingbird that I feed that just comes into my yard and just randomly screams into the void. And so I think probably like the perpetually angry screaming mockingbird that lives in my backyard that we call Yelly McScreamy Face. That's probably my animal soulmate. Yes, he's always mad. He's always dive bombing something. I don't know, but I understand him. He screams a lot. We get it.
Yelling McScreamy face.
Yelly McScreamy Face. Yep.
Okay.
I also have a rat snake that lives under my air conditioner named Ratty McSnake Face. So
That seems to be a common name, right?
yeah, there's a theme. There's a theme.
And my last question for you, Finn, is what do you want your legacy?
Oh boy, I'm happy to get into my cancer if there's more time. Can I bring that up now?
Please.
It's not very lightning. So when I was 19, I was diagnosed with terminal Hodgkin's, terminal lymphatic cancer, and did a lot of chemo. Spoiler alert, didn't work. And they set me loose in the universe and said, there's an experimental treatment down in Arizona. You can go do that. So I did. So I went down, I did radiation twice a day for 5 months, Cancer Center of Northern Arizona. And it worked, but they said, here's the good news. It worked. Here's the bad news. It's experimental, and we have absolutely no evidence of survival after 10 years. So we bought you 10 years. At 19, you're like 10 years, dude, that's a whole freaking life, right? So, well, I've thought a lot about my legacy because of that. I think a lot of my work now is really kind of informed by that, and my legacy is to leave things better than they were. My legacy is, I hope that, when the meat suit gives out, that people will be like, you know what? She tried. She tried really hard. And more than that, she tried to be kind. So
I think that's amazing, Beth. I think it's a great legacy. I'm really glad that you were able to share that with us. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for everything you're doing. I've really enjoyed just talking to you.
I've really enjoyed chatting with you too, Chris. I'm so glad that, like, even though we've passed by each other a million times at conferences. So yeah. But yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was a huge honor.